Welcome back, everybody. My name is Raze Chaos. You've made it back to my channel, and boo, yeah, we are hitting back. We are heading back to the DC Universe because you know Raze loves it there. Feels like it's been a while, but that's primarily because Raze doesn't really consider the Watchmen part of the DC Universe. I mean, I know that they did that later, but it was never intended to be part of the DC Universe. It doesn't fit in the DC Universe. And yeah, it's not in Raze's DC Universe. That's a standalone thing, and it doesn't really need to touch the DC Universe proper. Let it be its own thing, and let it stay its own thing. Yeah. But what we do have is Dr. Phosphorus, currently popular because of the HBO animated series that's part of the current Gun universe that DC is putting out, and it's the Creature Commandos. This is again which Raze has gotten asked several times about characters from the Creature Commandos, because they're like, oh, I don't know how accurate it is to the book, and I'm just like, do you even know anything about the book? Which of course most people don't. So the Creature Commandos were basically, they were designed. They were designed specifically to be that. It was during a period of time where war comics were all the rage. And, I mean, if you look, there are different sections of different comics from different eras. You had for a long time, romance comics were the thing. For a long time, westerns were. Sometimes it was horror. Sometimes it was war. And all of these are different genres of comic books. And you know, as time went on, and they went from being individual, you know, stories from a bunch of different, you know, that didn't have any kind of connection. Eventually, comic book companies started tethering them together, and Creature Commandos was basically created to kind of do a two birds with one stone type of thing. They basically had the Universal Studios monster type monsters like Frankenstein and the Wolfman and, you know, Dracula, that kind of thing. They had all of them, but like they weren't necessarily those actual characters. They just kind of looked like them. You know, the Frankenstein-like character was actually a you know, decorated war veteran who had been blown up and essentially patchworked back together. The Dracula-like character was not quite a vampire, but had very similar traits, and they even had a Medusa-like character in this. So yeah, none of that actually filtered down into the Creature Commandos. I mean, I believe it's actually a section of Task Force X, which is the Suicide Squad, which I thought was kind of a brilliant idea, because if you're in the DC Universe and you have the opportunity to do so, because let's face it, one of the big differences with the DC Universe as opposed to real life is you have people like Dr. Phosphorus, who could not blend into, you know, everyday society by any means. And, you know, you've got these big, you know, monstrous people that have been turned into these monsters. It makes sense to group them all together. That way, you know, if you are a covert military organization and one of your people get spotted, that could be a cryptid. You know, that could be, did I see that? Or, you know, no, you're crazy. It's just an idea. It's like, you don't want to mess around with the monsters. So, while it doesn't necessarily work as well in the DC Universe as it would, say, if it were real life, if you had a real group of people that were like mutated or, injured, however you want to put them, that actually look like monsters. Yeah, like, who would believe it if they said, oh, well, yeah, I always saw this guy that was burning, just wandering down the street. It's like, yeah, unless you got a, picture it didn't happen type thing. Well, it kind of makes sense in that world. It kind of canceled out by being in the DC universe where people, you do have strange looking characters. And of course, it couldn't work in the real life because beings like this don't exist. This character, however, while not part of the original Creature Commandos, he actually has a bit of a history. So we are going to go ahead and put this guy away, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Dr. Phosphorus. So Dr. Phosphorus came out in 1977, and he is originally a Batman villain. With the Creature Commandos, being part of from the same group as the Suicide Squad, just kind of like a different category. Obviously, just like that, they use villains for their crimes, and Dr. Phosphorus is one of them. Dr. Phosphorus originally was just basically, he was, your basic millionaire, billionaire, mogul type who wanted to create a nuclear power plant in Gotham City, and essentially got into business with Rupert Thorne, which, if you're a Batman person, that's one of the big crime bosses of Batman lore. Got together with him and essentially messed it up so bad that not even Rupert Thorne wanted to touch this. He's like, look, dude, you are sloppy. We cannot work with you. And during that whole time, he essentially gets into an accident and essentially starts showing the properties of phosphorus, where he's burning. He is thought dead because he's basically pushed into a nuclear reactor, where he comes back in this more phosphorus state. He can control. Shish kebab. He can control. His name says it all. Phosphorus. He has all the properties of phosphorus, which is one of the elements that is not found in nature. It's man-made. It's just very radioactive, which he himself is radioactive. Obviously, he's immune to radiation if he's able to, generate it. Please, don't. But yeah, he can generate, he can control it. He's just not a pleasant person to be around.
Stand down, Brian. You...
Get out of your brother.
What a shame. I liked that guy.
At least not unless you want to slowly die of radiation poisoning.
Are you smiling?
Yes.
Sarcastically?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is a... He was never really a big character, because, especially, like I said, 1977 is when he came out, and usually if they were going to bring Dr. Phosphorus in, it was because of the late 70s through the 80s little nuclear scare.
I always love a good barbecue.
as far as is nuclear, which is still kind of ongoing, is nuclear power safe or not? And he's an example of it not being safe.
Please, let me go!
Even though later on, in a in a storyline called Underworld Unleashed, which had basically this demon Neuron who was essentially making deals with heroes and villains, all over the place. Your basic Faust-like deal where it's like, hey, you sell me your soul and I will give you whatever you want. And I find it really interesting that Dr. Phosphorus is approached by Neuron and is given the option of, hey, what can I get you to sell me your soul for, rather than actually get returned back to something that he could actually exist in regular life. He basically he's like, jack me up, make me more powerful. Gives him a huge boost, and that's really just a huge sign of level of greed that this guy was willing to go through, which, yeah, that's not good.
Why are you smiling?
Slow down, bigot. I'm a freaking skeleton. It looks like I'm smiling even when I'm not.
You are not smiling?
Oh, I am. But you can't tell that.
Oh, yeah, he was boosted then, but even then, he still played a secondary character. I will say that he is much more interesting in the Creature Commandos animated series, and that is, you got to give credit where credit's due. Alan Tudyk does the voice for this character. Alan Tudyk is one of the funniest. He was made to do animated voices, and I think he's one of the Superman robots in the last Superman movie. Like, he and James Gunn go way back, and yeah, James Gunn loves using him, at least his voice. Maybe they're saving his body for something else, but yeah, Alan Tudyk does the voice of this character, and they didn't really change him that much because what the heck? It's like, well, what do you got to do? I'm sure there's superficial details that Raze. He was never big enough to character that you didn't have to look much further than the fact. Okay, he's Dr. Phosphorus. He looks like an irradiated skeleton, and he flies around and burns crap. And I always thought it was interesting that, like, later on, like in the 90s, they had another character which had a very interesting origin and everything that came out, and he was the corrosive man. And it just kind of seemed odd to Raze that, like, they'd have another character that similar. But at the same time, Dr. Phosphorus is actually a doctor. He is actually a scientific genius. But, yeah, wanting to experiment on himself, that is just never a good plan. Like, seriously, if you're a scientist and you're thinking about experimenting on yourself, don't. But we're going to go ahead and take this guy out, and we're going to have a look at this.
You know what it's like not being touched for 15 years?
So here we go. Ooh, I like it's, like, clear. They've got, like, a clear vinyl to this, where you can actually kind of see, vaguely see through him, which I've seen it done in other pops before, and it's really well utilized here. I do believe that there is a variant of this where he is actually a glow-in-the-dark version of him, which would absolutely make sense for the character and everything, but, call Raze a bit of a snob, but he really didn't think that this character really did. He was like, just give me the character. I don't care if he glows or not. But, thankfully they gave him clothes, which would have been ironic, having just done Dr. Manhattan, who is, just done Dr. Manhattan not long ago. And that's another character that, like, tends to be naked. Phosphorus was just basically kind of more or less like the Human Torch, except that you just saw his skeleton within this flaming glow. So yeah, it was cool that they actually gave him clothes, though how he can actually wear clothes when he essentially burns everything around him is rather insane. But they really play it well in the Creature Commandos series. Raze has mentioned that series before. He really enjoyed it. Yeah, that's really about all you can say about him. I mean, it was one of those things, which is one of the things I love James Gunn doing, is like pulling back some of the more obscure characters and like just pushing them to the front to where if he does change them, it really doesn't upset. There was no Dr. Phosphorus, big fan base that was going to be upset about any minute changes. So yeah, I mean, this is a great pop if you are a Batman collector and you want to only collect Batman related characters. This would be one that you would want to put in there, one of the more obscure ones. It wasn't until like, the 2000s before he actually bothered any other hero that wasn't already involved, wasn't guest starring with Batman, basically. So yeah, it's a really cool one. It's a really great one. Raze loves getting his obscure characters for his collection, and this one was a bonus. Not that Raze ever thought, oh, well, they'll never make a Dr. Phosphorus character. No, Raze never even thought of Dr. Phosphorus as far as a character that they could possibly make. So yeah, further down on that thing, but like now that Raze has it, he's happy he has it. And he's glad he's got the Creature Commandos where he can watch this character in the with voiced by Alan Tudyk. That is just absolutely going to be great for getting a good laugh out of you. But yeah, Raze can't really complain with this too much. But yeah, there's not a whole heck of a lot to say. Like I said, he kind of was a sporadic. They didn't really use him much in comics. Even after he was amplified, they didn't really do much with him. But still, Raze in his DC, he's got to get it. So, at any rate, Raze is going to go ahead and let you go now. Let me know if you've actually even read any of the old Dr. Phosphorus encounters. There's a very famous cover of him, coming out of one of the nuclear reactors. And he and Batman and Batgirl are just kind of cowering behind their capes because there's a flaming skeleton coming at them. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below if you even knew anything about Dr. Phosphorus before the Creature Commandos, and what you think about what they did with him. Ray's gonna go ahead and let you go now. I hope you have a great day, but never forget, the life is full of odd moments. You never know when you're going to be defined.